There are more indications that the Trump administration is attempting to provoke Iran into some sort of conflict. As you can tell, tensions are already flaring as a result of the Trump administration pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal. And there have been some other provocations by John Bolton. And this is something to be concerned about because we could be in an all-out war if someone like John Bolton gets his way. Now, the latest update to this story includes information regarding the Defense Secretary, the acting Defense Secretary, and what he has done. So according to the New York Times, the Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan presented an updated military plan that envisions sending as many as 120,000 troops to the Middle East should Iran attack American forces or accelerate work on nuclear weapons. Now, let me be clear about something. There is absolutely no indication that Iran plans on or has attacked American soldiers or American forces. There have been some accusations by the Trump administration, and the New York Times clearly lays out that they have not provided any evidence regarding some of the accusations that they've made. But one thing that we do know is that John Bolton has been pushing for war with Iran since the Bush administration, and we have some evidence of that in just a second.
So this sounds exactly like the lead up to the Iraq war, full of nonsense and propaganda. We're gonna break it all down for you, but first, let's note that for all my friends on the right and the left who thought that Donald Trump was a non-interventionist, a man seeking peace out of principle, 120,000 troops in the middle of the Middle East to provoke a war with Iran, which is 4 times the size of Iraq, is not a man looking for peace and is not a person who is interested in non-interventionism. And he has, of course, threatened Iran in dozens of ways, and saying they better watch out and there'll be grave consequences, etc. Now, another way that you know that he's not a man pursuing peace is that he hired John Bolton to be his national security advisor, literally the biggest warmonger in America. Some of the things that Bolton has pushed for would make Dick Cheney blush, so would make the late John McCain look like a dove. So John Bolton, who said we don't need diplomacy, we should take out 10 floors of the United Nations. A man that does not believe in diplomacy, only believes in war. Trump hired him. Would anyone interested in peace ever hire John Bolton? I guess your only defense could be Donald Trump is so pathetically stupid that he has no idea what anyone believes or has ever believed. But what John Bolton has as an ally is, yes, Trump's incompetence. Because Bolton thinks, how did I get this lucky? I mean, we tricked Bush into war. I mean, he was pretty willing to begin with, but we had to pretend that Saddam was an enemy. We had to goad him and say, oh, your daddy couldn't get him, but maybe you can. We had to do these tricks. With Trump, it's so easy. He's a serial bungler, so we're gonna bungle him into war. We're gonna put so many troops in the middle of the Middle East that you can't avoid war. And then we'll tell Trump, are you gonna sit there and take it from the Ayatollah? So this is a recipe designed to provoke an unbelievable, disastrous war. If they actually execute it and they put those American troops in the middle of the Middle East provoking Iran, you will definitely get war.
Well, just to back up a little bit and give you some more context, everything the Trump administration has done to this point has been to provoke war. So first you have Donald Trump pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal, and Iran, to its credit, continued following the guidelines of that deal because there are other countries involved. You have Germany, you have France, you have Britain. They all co-signed onto that deal, and they were still doing business with Iran even after Trump had pulled out of the nuclear deal. Now, Trump is essentially saying, and the administration is essentially saying to all of these European countries, if you continue to do business and if you continue importing oil from Iran into your own countries, well, then you're gonna face sanctions yourselves. And so Iran has realized, okay, well now no one's doing business with us because of the United States, so we might actually start enriching uranium. And that has basically, that was the reaction that the Trump administration wanted because they want the excuse, they want the reason to pursue Iran militarily. Now,
can I just say on that front, I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit to give you some amazing quotes from the New York Times on that part of the story. They say at one point, Quote, it is not clear to American intelligence officials what changed Iran's posture, because they claim that Iran has gotten a little bit more aggressive in the latter parts of April and into May. It's not clear what changed their posture. Now, in the same paragraph, they explained that we started a clampdown on all oil exports last month in April. Wow, it's not clear. I can't quite figure it out. Gee, I wonder what it is. Then the next paragraph. Also in April, the State Department designated the Revolutionary Guards a foreign terrorist organization over objections from the Pentagon and intelligence officials who feared reprisals from the Iranian military. And then we haven't gotten the reprisals yet, but we've got hints of them actually getting ready. I mean, ready for what? Not ready for war, not ready for, they haven't done anything yet. I just want to be super clear about that. But for the intelligence officials, and it's not the New York Times saying it, they're quoting the intelligence officials. For the intelligence officials to go, I don't know what would provoke Iran, but that we're financially suffocating them, and we broke the deal, they didn't. And then we designated their military terrorist organizations and froze all their funds all across the world because nobody can work with terrorist organizations. I don't know, after punching them in the face 1,000 times over, I don't know what could have provoked them. Right. Later, they will claim Iran started it. Let us be incredibly clear.
Of course
I
they will.
can't stand the government of Iran. It's a theocracy, it's a dictatorship in a lot of ways. And the Revolutionary Guard and the mullahs do not have the best intentions for the Iranian people. But did they start this? No, we definitely started it.
And I wanted to add one other piece to the puzzle because this is important. We have already taken some action militarily to provoke Iran. So let me give you an example of that. The Pentagon has moved an aircraft carrier, B-52 bombers, a Patriot missile interceptor battery, and more naval firepower to the Gulf region. So that just recently happened, and that's on top of pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal. That's on top of threatening our allies if they do business with Iran. That's on top of all the other points of provocation that we've seen from the Trump administration so far. And Cenk is absolutely right. I mean, if you compare Iran and what's happening with Iran right now to what happened with Iraq, the similarities are really uncanny. And MoveOn.org put together a great video helping us really visualize that. So let's take a look.
And we know that Iraq is continuing to finance terror and gives assistance to groups that use terrorism to undermine Middle East peace.
The Iranian regime continues to fuel conflict, terror, and turmoil throughout the Middle East and beyond.
Many nations are joining us in insisting that Saddam Hussein's regime be held accountable.
Iran will be held accountable.
The danger is already significant, and it only grows worse with time.
This is a threat to the region and a threat to the world, and it gets worse day by day by day.
The same tyrant has tried to dominate the Middle East.
And Iran's ambition to dominate the Middle East remains.
They could attack our allies or attempt to blackmail the United States.
America will not be held hostage to nuclear blackmail.
Regime change in Iraq is the only certain means of removing a great danger to our nation.
And therefore, the only solution is to change the regime itself.
Because I really do believe we will be greeted as liberators.
Freedom is right around the corner.
Real quick, the Trump administration is claiming, no, we don't want to pursue them militarily. What we're trying to do is make these sanctions hurt the economy so much that there will be an uprising within Iran, and that uprising will lead to regime change. Well, first of all, I don't think it should be the United States' role to decide who should or shouldn't be the leader of any country. Secondly, I don't believe them. They've already taken some actions, including proposing 120,000 American troops to go to that region and essentially further or increase the tensions between the United States and Iran. They want war, it's abundantly clear.
If you don't want war, you don't send 120,000 troops and park it right next to their country. That's not what you do if you don't want war. And by the way, that's about the same number as we used in the invasion of Iraq in 2003. Now let's go to the comedy that we will be greeted as liberators. So their version of it this time around, last time they told us it would be easy. One Bush appointed official went in front of Congress, said at most it would cost $1.7 billion. It has now cost many trillions of dollars. They said that it would only take a couple of weeks, and as you know, it took decades. So now in this case, they said, don't worry, we don't even necessarily need to attack. They will surrender. They will surrender without really how? Well, we have something called Nitro Zeus, apparently. What is that? That's a cyber operation that called for unplugging Iran's major cities from its power grid and its military, okay? All right, so then what happens next? Okay, you unplug the whole country, then what happens? The idea was to use cyber weapons to paralyze Iran in the opening hours of any conflict in hopes that it would obviate the need to drop any bombs or conduct a traditional attack. Okay, let's think that through. Okay, the power goes out everywhere. Everybody's in a panic in Iran. Why would they logically just come out and go, oh, we surrender to America? What? Who in their right mind would believe that? I mean, these are senior people at the Pentagon, intelligence, the White House having this absurd conversation, this insane conversation. And look, if I'm the president, if any of you are the president, you're rational actors, you go, look, I see the whole plan. Obviously, you were trying to get us into a war. That's the first thing you would say, right? What do you mean that, okay, we shut off all their power, and then why do they surrender? I don't understand what the hell you're talking about. Well, if you put 120,000 Iranian troops on our Canadian border, we would immediately attack Iran because we would think they're coming to invade us. So if we put it right next to their border, they're gonna think we're coming to invade them. That's an obvious provocation, and I can go on and on. But Trump goes, oh yeah, okay, yeah, me like being tough guy. Non-interventionist? Are you kidding me? Principles, are you kidding me? No, it's gonna be so easy to get this buffoon to stumble himself into a war.
What do we communicate to the world with these regime change wars? Because people like to pretend as if our actions or our foreign policy toward one specific country is somehow compartmentalized and it doesn't send a message to the rest of the world, but it does. So if you approach someone like Kim Jong-un and you try to get him to unilaterally denuclearize when you're trying to push for regime change in Venezuela, you're trying to push for regime change in Iran, do you think that Kim Jong-un would be stupid enough to give up his nuclear weapons, knowing that the United States does this over and over and over again? Are we really gonna put more of our troops in danger for this war? I mean, these government officials apparently think that it's totally okay to risk their lives over nonsense like this.
Okay, now let's go to more propaganda. Garrett Markey, a National Security Council spokesman, said, Iran's default option for 40 years has been violence. No, that's kind of been our default option. You heard in the tape, and brilliantly put together by Move On there, of Pompeo saying, Iran wants to dominate the Middle East. We've been trying to dominate the Middle East for the last 40 years. And how did we do it? We did it through force and violence. We invaded Afghanistan. You can say there was a good reason to, but we did. We did invade them. We did use our military. And then we used our military to invade Iraq. Then we used our military to bomb almost every country in the region. And so how has Iran tried to dominate the Middle East? How has Iran used force in the last 40 years? Now, if you say, hey, listen, they're funding Hamas, Hezbollah, et cetera, and those are destabilizing forces, and they also use force, I understand. That's actually an intelligent and interesting conversation. If you claim we're innocent, and golly gee, oh my God, Iran is trying to influence their region, while what? We say Venezuela, that's in the Americas, we own it. We're gonna tell them what to do with their elections. We're gonna tell them what to do with their government. It's our region, right? And then you go all the way over to the Middle East, you start endless number of wars, you never leave, and then you accuse Iran of using too much force and trying to dominate the Middle East. That's Orwellian. This is 1984, where they go and start wars and then go, there was nothing we could do. Iran was so forceful and violent that we had to preemptively attack them. Listen to that sentence. And that's exactly what we did in Iraq and exactly what John Bolton and Pompeo are planning right now, and that Trump is going to easily stumble into. And this is so sad, we only have one hope left, a call from Vladimir Putin. Seriously, and I know some of your heads will explode, go ahead, go get angry, whatever you like, okay? But I'm gonna do what Trump did during the campaign. Russia, please call Trump, okay, and talk him out of it. Because he's the only guy that Trump ever listens to is Putin. So remember, he was still in Syria, despite his pledges to leave Syria. He was there for years and years and years. He has a couple of conversations, one with Erdogan from Turkey, one from Putin, with Putin, and all of a sudden he overnight's like, we're getting out of Syria. I forgot, I'm non-interventionist, okay? Great, look, it's terrible that he's controlled by a foreign government in my opinion. But we gets us out of Syria, wonderful, I'll take it. Venezuela, goddamn coup, Guaido's the real leader. We're gonna freeze all their assets, we're coming to get you, and we're all military options on the table. Gets a call from Putin. Oh, no, Bolton misled me. Russia has wonderful intentions in Venezuela and is not interfering, and we're not gonna do anything more in Venezuela. It's terrible that he's controlled by Russia. I love that we're not doing a coup in Venezuela anymore. So, Vlad, call the guy, call him. Now, I don't know what Russia's intentions are. They are allies of Iran, so he might get that call. On the other hand, if we bungled into a war with Iran, it would destroy us financially, militarily. Absolutely. It would create chaos. It's Iraq on steroids. And if you're an opponent of America, you would think, oh, please make that mistake.
And if the media were savvy, what they would do is they would actually cover this as much as they're covering William Barr and William Barr's investigation into the Russia investigation. Because it's—
But the media loves this.
I know, but you're right. But here's the thing. His voters, okay, I'm talking about his base, did like his anti-interventionist message. And so if you actually cover this story and you talk about what it would do to our economy, what it would do to our military, how it would risk the lives of our troops for again, nonsense, I think that could really work. Because I want voters to control Trump. And that includes his own voters who voted for him based on his anti-interventionist message, his America First message. This is not America First. This is putting us at a giant disadvantage. And remember, the war in Iraq, we had allies that were willing to join in that war. I don't think it's gonna happen this time around. And I think that's the right choice for our allies to make. Do you think that all of these other European countries that signed on to the Iran nuclear deal are gonna help us fight this war with Iran? Of course not.
I'll tell you, no matter what you think of Russia's intentions, Russia and China will step in immediately and go to the rest of the world. See, we told you, America's a madman. You should come to our side. Ignore their tariffs, ignore their sanctions, don't do trade with them anymore. They're crazy. They're starting another disastrous war in the Middle East. Come trade with us, come do deals with us. Whether Russia has interfered or not interfered, that will be obviously what they will say. And China will take even bigger advantage. We have a moron as president, just like we did when we started the Iraq war. And we have warmongers as his advisors, just like when we started the Iraq war. And so this is a recipe for absolute disaster. I'll give the New York Times credit on this. Now, a lot of what the intelligence officials and the Pentagon, et cetera, and Trump White House officials are saying is reported dutifully by the New York Times, and I get it, it's news. It does look a lot like the lead up to the Iraq war, but they did try to give it some facts within this story. They didn't bury the facts in page A17 later.
It would be difficult for the Trump administration to make a case that the United States was under imminent nuclear peril. Iran shipped 97% of its fuel out of the country in 2016 and currently does not have enough to make a bomb.
And they explained that it would take years to get enough fuel and then more years to turn it into a weapon. So saying that it's imminent is preposterous. And by the way, why did they take 97% of their uranium fuel out of the country? Oh, because of the deal that Obama made. If Obama hadn't made that deal, they'd be much further along in at least their nuclear energy program, if not their weapons program. Okay, but what did Trump do? He ripped it up so we can get into war instead. The last quote from the New York Times is, as recently as late April, an American intelligence analysis, so overall intelligence analysis by the United States of America, indicated that Iran had no short-term desire to provoke a conflict. No short-term desire to provoke a conflict, none. It is our desire to provoke a conflict, not their desire. And if you stop and think about it for a second, of course, will it be a disastrous war for us? Yes, but it'll also be way more disastrous for them. So it's not like they're like, oh yeah, let's have the greatest military ever built come and invade us. They do not want that. They've got a nice thing going for the Ayatollahs and the mullahs and the Revolutionary Guard that run Iran. Their rule is fairly unchallenged. There is no real democracy. They handpicked the people who are gonna run. You think they wanna overturn their own apple cart? and ruin the corruption that they have going over there by provoking us into a war? No, they don't. No, they don't. We're the ones provoking war. It's super obvious. The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.